Welcome back to The Explainer, everyone. I am absolutely thrilled you're tuning in today. Look, if you feel like your CELPIP score has just completely hit a wall and you can't seem to break through to that CLB 9 or higher, you are in the exact right place. Today, I'm putting on my tutor hat, and we are going to tear down that plateau together. We're diving into a highly targeted, bilingual English and Chinese vocabulary masterclass. We'll be unpacking 15 high-impact words, digging deep into their Canadian cultural context, and mapping out exactly how to deploy them on your actual exam.
All right, let's jump right in. Basic phrases like very angry or very happy, they are literally the #1 trap for test takers. This stop saying very problem is incredibly common because here's the thing. When you rely on those basic modifiers, you're basically flashing a neon sign to the examiner that says your vocabulary is limited. But upgrading your vocabulary to advanced words like furious or ecstatic, that is the ultimate game changer for locking in those high CELPIP scores. It instantly shows precision, it sets the right tone, and it proves your absolute mastery of the language.
To make our time together incredibly efficient, we've grouped our 15 essential words into 3 core categories. First up, mastering strong emotions. Second, mindsets and attitudes. And third, everyday social emotions. So let's kick things off with Section 1, mastering strong emotions. These are those powerful, high-impact adjectives you definitely want in your back pocket as perfect replacements for basic feelings, especially for your speaking and writing tasks. Now, what's really interesting about this group is how specific they are. First up, furious, which in Chinese is 狂怒的. Notice the exact collocation here. You are furious at or furious with someone. Next is ecstatic, meaning 狂喜的, perfectly paired with absolutely ecstatic. Then we've got horrified, and finally, exhausted, meaning 精疲力尽的. Take a look at those importance ratings too. Furious, ecstatic, and exhausted, those are heavy-hitting 4-star words. You don't just want to memorize the word itself. You absolutely have to memorize the exact collocations, like completely exhausted, if you want to sound just like a native speaker. But to really maximize your score, we've got to anchor these words directly to Canadian culture. Now, Canada is famous for its super polite public culture, right? People rarely scream in the streets. However, when it comes to writing a formal customer service complaint, stating you are furious is perfectly standard practice. Same goes for work-life balance. When that balance falls apart, Canadians talk a lot about burnout, which makes exhausted the absolute perfect word to use. And when someone shares massive life news, like, say, buying a house or having a baby, telling them you are ecstatic for them hits the exact right cultural note. Let's see this in action. If you just write, I was very angry for CELPIP writing task 1, well, you're going to get an average score. Instead, try this. I am writing to express how furious I was with the unprofessional service I received at your clinic. Boom, instantly upgraded. It sets this formal, serious tone that examiners are literally trained to reward you for. Now, how about speaking task 4, where you have to predict the future based on an image? If you need to describe a tired person, don't just say they're tired. Upgrade it. The woman looks completely exhausted from working multiple jobs, and I predict she is going to fall asleep on the bus. Using that exact phrase, completely exhausted, is your key descriptive element. It gives a really vivid, undeniable reason for your prediction. Moving right along to Section 2, mindsets and attitudes. Here, we're shifting our focus to the workplace and academic vocabulary. You absolutely need to nail those professional Canadian tones. Let's walk through these 4 mindset words. Confident is a massive 5-star must-know word for expressing firm opinions. You are confident in or confident about something. Next, we have cautious. Then there's indifferent, which translates to 漠不关心的. This one is incredibly important for reading tasks when you have to figure out an author's specific tone. And rounding out the list is sympathetic, a totally essential 4-star word for interpersonal tasks. So how do these fit into daily Canadian life? Well, in the workplace or during interviews, projecting that you are confident is basically a cultural necessity. On the flip side, winter driving in Canada means dealing with dangerous black ice, so being cautious is a very real seasonal reality, and it's also a great word for talking about avoiding online scams. Finally, Canada has this deeply rooted culture of empathy. Being sympathetic to someone else's struggles is a foundational social expectation that you really need to demonstrate on the test. And this brilliantly illustrates how you can apply cautious to speaking task 1, which often asks for your advice.
Imagine you get a prompt about online safety. You could say, you should always be cautious about sharing your personal information online to avoid scams. It's highly practical, it uses a top-tier collocation, and it answers the prompt with absolute perfection.
Now check out this absolute masterpiece of a sentence for speaking task 6, dealing with a difficult situation. I am entirely sympathetic to your situation, but unfortunately, company policy prevents us from offering a full refund. This is the perfect opening strategy, guys. You are perfectly balancing that deep cultural empathy by being entirely sympathetic with a firm, polite refusal. This is exactly the kind of nuance examiners are hunting for.
All right, section 3. Everyday social emotions. This is actually our biggest category, focusing on uniquely Canadian everyday experiences, weather, and those day-to-day social interactions. Looking at these final 7 words, I want you to immediately zero in on the top priorities. Anxious is a massive 5-star word, and guilty is a huge 4-star word. I promise you these 2 will come up constantly. I also want to give a quick shout out to bashful. It's a fantastic, slightly more advanced 2-star upgrade for the word shy, which is especially handy for describing cute kids in those picture tasks. The rich cultural context here is really what gives these words their power. Take gloomy, for example. In cities like Vancouver, which we often jokingly call Raincouver, those long rainy seasons make gloomy the absolute perfect word for both the weather and the overall mood. Then there's newcomer isolation, or 新移民的孤独感. Since Canada's a nation of immigrants, feelings of being lonely are super common themes in CELPIP prompts. And of course, the famous Canadian sorry culture means you'll frequently find yourself needing to express that you feel guilty about even minor inconveniences.
Let's see just how versatile gloomy can be. In speaking task 3, where you're describing a picture, you don't want to just say, the weather is bad. Come on, we can do better. Say something like, in the background, the weather looks quite gloomy, with dark storm clouds rolling in. It paints this incredibly vivid, atmospheric picture for the examiner and instantly boosts that vocabulary score. And for speaking task 6, where you're often apologizing, expressing guilt is your core strategy. You want to lean right into that Canadian sorry culture. Try saying, I feel terribly guilty for missing your birthday party yesterday due to a sudden work emergency. See how that sounds so much more sincere and culturally fluent than just tossing out a basic, I am very sorry. So the crucial point here is understanding exactly how the test developers use these words. Take anxious. This is a 5-star keyword for listening part 5. Why? Well, because those conversations almost always revolve around someone dealing with a problem, feeling super stressed out, and trying to find a solution. If you hear a dialogue about an upcoming final exam, you can absolutely bet the core emotion driving that whole scene is that someone is anxious. All right, let's quickly summarize the ultimate exam strategy we've built today. If you want to finally break through that score plateau, you absolutely must execute these 3 specific steps. Step 1, totally eliminate basic very modifiers from your vocabulary. Step 2, don't just learn the word itself. Memorize the exact collocations, like completely exhausted or entirely sympathetic. And step 3, anchor these words to their Canadian cultural context so you can use them naturally and appropriately. Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a bit of a challenge. You now have the tools, you have the cultural context, and you've got the high-yield test strategies. But passive learning just won't change your score. So which of these 15 upgraded words are you going to force yourself to use in your very next CELPIP practice test? Seriously, pick one right now, write it down, and make it yours. Keep practicing, stay focused, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.